Journalist claims that Francis told him that the incarnate Jesus was man, but not God. Plus, we expected women deacons. Are women priests in the offing as well? Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt coming to you from Rome, from the Amazon Synod, where today we got to the nuts and bolts of it all over at the Vatican press office, and most of those nuts and bolts are pretty chaotic. But in the middle of all of this, almost feeling sorry for Francis at this point, this guy Eugenio Scalfari, who's gotten Pope Francis in so much trouble in the past, some atheist friend of his, a very elderly man, he comes out with a report claiming that Francis told him, get this, that Jesus incarnate was man, a really great man, but not God, while he was on earth. Who knows if this is true? Scalfari, again, is not the most reliable source, but why the Pope continues to give this crazy person, if he is crazy, continues to give him interviews is anyone's guess. But for sure, whether Francis said it or not, the Pope is not having a very good week. People are seeing through a lot of things, and it started with the Vatican Gardens and the little pagan ceremony that went on there earlier in the week. This town is also buzzing with another report that the source, remember yesterday when we talked about the fact that 20 Amazonian tribes now are supposedly engaging in or committing infanticide. Well, now the town is talking about the fact that the source of that journalist's questions, which was on the Brazilian bishop's website, this morning turned up missing. That's right, folks, it was scrubbed from the website. Apparently somebody wasn't listening, and so that website had to be fixed. Now the Vatican just really, honestly, it doesn't seem to understand how the internet works, how fast everything, how easy it is to fact check their pontificating, forgive the pun, their pontificating propaganda. And I don't think they ever even anticipated the pushback now against this whole indigenous display of feathers going on here, this propaganda. After Assisi, and these kind of things happen all the time, I think Francis thought this was a slam dunk. Everyone was going to go for the feathers. So far, lots of people are not going for the feathers. They're seeing through this as window dressing for the real reason that this entire sorry synod was convened in the first place, to change doctrine, to bring women deacons, if not women priests now, into the Catholic Church. Again, the idea being with the one world religion that's being formed here, Catholic Christianity will be okay, but we're all going to have the same sort of thing. We're not going to have sacrifice. Catholics aren't going to have a specific, claim on the truth and all of that, evidently. Because as we know, this all started 50 years ago when they attacked the traditional Latin Mass, when they turned the altar into a table, when they essentially turned the priest into a presider. Again, this has all been coming for a long time. Back to today's press conference. We learned that climate change deniers represent the greatest threat to humanity. Why? Because if we lose 50% of the Amazon forest and the carbon that comes from that, the planet is going to get even warmer and faster than was anticipated. And we're never going to reach our millennium goals for, wait for it, and I quote, for sustainable development. Thank you, Jeffrey Sachs. So we have an obligation, the Synod representative told us today, therefore we have an obligation to oppose global warming, to change our way of living, to reduce our carbon footprint, of course, and we have to change our lifestyles to protect the planet. Well, does that sound familiar? It's the same old environmentalist, radical pantheist rot. This is the same sky and the sky is falling hysteria that we get from the likes of Jeff Sachs and Bernie Sanders in the States, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Al Gore, of course, and the rest. Another reporter these reporters, the press, by the way, has been great over here. They're asking really probing, tough questions, and the press representatives from the Synod don't seem to have a lot of answers. So another reporter dropped another bomb today. He said, now what about the fact that 80% of the people in the Amazon live in the city? And he said that St. Paul himself only evangelized cities back in the early days of the church, which, by the way, those cities remained pagan for centuries thereafter. In other words, Paul was concentrating on the cities where all the people were. So not only are the vast majority of folks in the Amazon not running around in their feathers and their grass skirts anymore, but the vast majority of those people don't even live in the jungle. They live in big cities just like the rest of us do. So what is with the charade? Again, what is with the feathers? Now, the press panelist, this guy, Bishop Erwin Krautler, of the territorial prelature of Xingu, he seemed a little out of his element, I got to say. Poor man, he was trying, but he was really kind of nervous up there at this question. And he said that, yes, quote, yes, many have said this, that 80% of the Amazon people live in the city. Well, you didn't say it, Your Excellency. It was like you were hoping that we wouldn't find that out. Anyway, he says 80% of the Amazonian people, yes, they live in the city. Indigenous people, he says, are attracted by big cities. They're attracted by the lights. They're attracted by the lights. Well, you know how it is. The Amazonian people, they like lights. But he went on to say that instrumentum laboris is not a document, it's an instrument, you see. So we can't say that the cities are sinful places. Cities are increasing in size, he says, and for us it is a challenge. How can we reach people? Lots of Pentecostal churches, he said, by the way, while we are absent because of lack of priests and monks and nuns, they're there. And so we need to find paths to get there too. So the church has to be present, and it doesn't have to be a church that makes only visits. And I'm like, what is he talking? And several people were. Somebody in the press hall said to me, why won't he answer the question? Because I'm sorry, Your Excellency, but please answer the question. Why are you all pretending here at this synod that the Amazon people, to whom we're all supposed to be listening and learning from, are forest-dwelling, tree-hugging, nature-loving fellows who just want the hydroelectric plants to go away so they can continue to commune with Mother Earth in peace and quiet of the jungle? Why are you pretending this? You know as well as we do that one of the biggest problems in the Amazon today is not global warming, it's rampant drug abuse. You don't have a lot of drug abuse in the jungle, do you? So why aren't we talking about drug abuse? Why aren't we listening to the cry of the drug addicted in the Amazon, perhaps? That seems like a bigger problem. Did you know that from 2010 to 2014, an estimated 6.5 million induced abortions occurred every year down there, down in South America? So how about listening to the cry of the murdered unborn? Is anybody in the Catholic Church worried about that? The murdered unborn down there, legal or illegal, down in the Amazon. Wouldn't it be fantastic to have a synod of all the bishops they could possibly bring together here in Rome to do something about the fact that millions of human beings are murdered in the world today through abortion? This is just, it becomes so incongruent that you just, it's hard to take these guys seriously. When you think about the real problems in the world, oh my gosh, the temperatures are going to go up. Oh, what are we going to do? Meanwhile, the churches are closing all over the world. We have a massive cultural crisis. We've got rampant immorality. We've got abortion all over the place, contraception. And the Catholic Church is worried about rising temperatures. It's insane. Back to the press conference. Christopher Lamb of the Tablet, who, by the way, took it upon himself today in the press hall to, God knows why, but he took it upon himself to apologize to the indigenous peoples at the synod for members of the media who Chris Lamb has decided are racist and insensitive to them. I don't know what this has to do with journalism or journalistic integrity, but we all got a little scolding. I don't know who he was referring to. Anyway, Mr. Lamb wanted to know why ordaining married men is so important in his synod. And again, poor Bishop Erwin Krautler had to answer, so he said, quote, "There is no other option. Indigenous peoples do not understand celibacy. They cannot understand this thing that man is not married and doesn't have a woman. They can't grasp celibacy." So let me get this straight. Millions of Catholics all around the world, multi-generations, thousands of years, of all skin color, of all ethnic backgrounds, of all cultures, have embraced clerical celibacy in the Roman Church for what, 1,000 years? More than that? But according to Bishop Krautler here at the Amazon Synod, the indigenous peoples of the Amazon are what? Just too stupid to understand celibacy? Or they just can't grasp it? We can't even ask them to grasp it. They don't get celibacy. They can't possibly handle that. And Chris Lamb of the Tablet says that the journalists here in Rome are racist? You see, this is just getting out of control. This is insanity. One more question for Bishop Krautler. Poor man, I hope he's resting now because it was not a good press conference for him. Somebody said to His Excellency, you met the Pope and you asked this Pope about viri probati, the removal from the instrumentum laboris of this idea that only men of virtue or unmarried men can be priests in the Catholic Church. And the reporter was asking a good question. She wanted to know, whose idea was this to remove the idea that men, celibate men, unmarried men, are the only ones that can be priests? Bishop Krautler or Pope Francis? Whose idea was it? But the bishop never got around to answering that question either. He sidestepped it. Instead, he said, and I quote, I met the Pope in 2015. I presented 3 aspects of the Synod. 1, the Amazon destruction, the Amazon forest destruction. 2, the indigenous peoples problem. And 3, the Eucharist. He said there are thousands of communities in the Amazon who do not have the Eucharist except for a few times a year. So these peoples are practically excluded from the church, said His Excellency. And he said, what we want is that our brothers and sisters in the Amazon have the Eucharist. But how to get it to them when the priesthood is only for men, is only possible for unmarried men. But there's another aspect, he says. 2/3 of these communities are directed by women. So what do? We need concrete solutions. And I'm thinking about women's diaconate. This is the topic of the Synod that's being discussed. So says the bishop. Now afterwards, it got interesting. So now they're actually talking about the ordination of women deacons. But afterwards, in the press hall, after the conference was over, Edward Pentin of the National Register asked Bishop Krautler about not only women deacons, but also women priests.
Is the ordination of women deacons part of a push to ordain women priests in the church?
I guess many of the bishops are in favor of the ordination of female deacons.
But is it part of a push for ordination of women priests in the church? You support that, no? You support it. You support women priests. Is that not true? You support women priests?
I tell you, Kay, that for me, there is no
problem.
Remember what they
No problem.
Because why women not are able to be ordained? Why?
So you support women? You would like to see women ordained priests?
Logically.
And do you see this synod as a means to achieve that?
No, the synod doesn't.
But do you see it as a step? A step towards that?
I would say it is, but maybe
yes.
Step 2.
Step 2, okay.
He's in favor of both women deacons and women priests. So this obviously is signaling where this synod is going. And I'll tell you what, friends, this early on in this thing, the wheels really do seem to be sort of coming off this machine. I mean, hard questions are being brought by, I would say, very conscientious and thorough journalists in the press hall, and the folks running the synod just don't seem to have answers beyond their usual talking points. He's, again, listen to the cry of the earth, find new pathways, synodal listening, engage in synodal listening, listen to this, listen to that, and then listen some more. The whole thing sounds like an infomercial for Miracle Ear. So I would say keep praying, because this thing is far from over. People are really kind of on to what's going on, at least early on. Lots of folks, lots of journalists are on to what's going on over here. And what this begins to look like is a South American Pope and his dream of tearing down the old bastions of Christendom. Most of them are gone anyway, but he wants to tear down the rest of them in order to hand over what's left now of the Catholic Church to the most radical political operatives in the world today. That's what he's doing. And that's why, again, why the Vatican was open to the likes of Jeffrey Sachs and even Bernie Sanders before the last election, because they're all in this together. I don't think he's going to get away with it. I don't think any of them are going to get away with it. God will have the last word when it comes to his church, and God's already, thank God, he already seems to be confusing the tongues of the people here who are working on this new Tower of Babel. They're not going to get away with it. I'm Michael Matt from Rome, and we'll see you tomorrow.